Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight Podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me. For those of you that have joined me for previous shows and are, I guess, dedicated or loyal listeners, I massively appreciate your support. Today, I have a show all on my own, which, yes, for those of you that have asked, is quite a challenge, and that's actually why I do it from time to time. Today, I am talking all about class programming, how to put together a good class program, or how I believe that we should put together a good class program, what makes a good class program, and also what makes good people in a class. I think they go hand in hand. You can have the best class program if the person in the class, coaching the class, doesn't get it and doesn't explain it properly. You don't have a good class. And if the people in the class participating in the class don't get it, then you also don't have a good class. I'm going to cover everything from A to Z that I've learned over the last almost 20 years of putting together CrossFit class programs and a CrossFit class. Some of it might be new to some of you. Some of it might not be new to any of you. However, this is how we approach things, and these are some of the considerations that we have in place to ensure we deliver what we believe, and this is only what we believe, is the best class program available. Welcome to this week's show announcement, and welcome to Athens. If you're watching the video version, you'll see in the background the historical city of Athens. We are here this weekend, is Spartathlon. I'm here to support Rob and Jeff's brother, Darren, in this incredible 245 kilometer race. Yes, it's a race. More about that later. What have we got for this week's announcements? Last weekend was a huge weekend. Toby, our new CrossFit coach, was over in Qatar and they won the competition over there. First win for him in the region. Team event. Wad Guy's team he was a part of, and they were on the top step of the podium, so congratulations to those guys. Congratulations also to Tom and Humaid, who were racing over in Italy in the Xterra World Championships last weekend. And finally, Jess was with a whole bunch of triathletes down in Salalah for 70.3 Salalah. So loads of stuff going on last weekend. Also, we are gearing up for the Turf Games, which happens here in Dubai, or there in Dubai, because actually I'm here in Athens at the moment, in Dubai in November. The teams have been selected for that. Training is ongoing as well. Talking of training in the gym, next week is Hell Week. This comes around once every 6 to 8 months, sometimes a little bit longer, 10 to 12 months. It is a week of brutal workouts, both physically and mentally. If you are part of the class program, or if you want to become part of the class program, that is a great week to try and complete. The objective is to complete every single day 5 brutal workouts. Staying with working out in the gym this Friday, if you're listening to this Thursday night or Friday morning. Friday is a public holiday in Dubai, and we have our end of month final Fridays. 1 hour, 90 minutes workout as a community, which will be a whole load of fun. All of this stuff you can find in the news section over at theinnerfightway.com. Thank you for everyone who has been over there. And one last thing I would encourage you to go and have a read of over there, especially if you're part of our CrossFit program, is an article that we put out last week by the title Constantly Varied. From here in Athens, have a great week, enjoy the show, and as always, thanks for listening and all of your support. This is episode number 842 of the InnerFight Podcast. Welcome back to another show. Thank you. Yes, if you're watching the video version, I still have these Oakley blue light blocking glasses on. They are a little bit weird. They have a yellow tinge to them. If you're watching the video, then you might think I look a bit odd. And to be honest, that's okay. Lots of people, they do call me odd from time to time. I've been using them now for a week or so, and to be honest, I find them pretty comfortable. If you're staring at a screen the whole day, maybe give them a shout. I first started using blue light blocking glasses maybe in about 2019, where my friends from Wildwood, Island of Luke, gave me a set of blue light blue light blocking glasses. Found them pretty useful. Broke those, got some others. The lenses on the other ones used to get dirty a lot. I used them a lot in COVID, and obviously I just had food all over my hands like a lot of people did, or in their face during COVID, and they got dirty a lot. I haven't used them since, but the kind people at Oakley that are always taking care of me have supplied me with this pair, and I'm enjoying wearing them. So I'm going to wear them for the shows until I get bored of them. Not until I get bored of them. I wasn't supposed to say that. Anyway, let's get into today's show. We are talking all about class programming. The reason why I have put this show together is in an attempt to provide some context and also some education around, or information and hopefully education to some people around the class program that we run here at InnerFight, and also around what really we should be looking for, or what elements a class program should have. And this pretty much goes for no matter where you are following your class program. So if you are not coming to our gym, these are still elements, and this show is still very relevant for you for the class program that you're potentially following at your gym. It was kind of born off the back of, well, I've been a bit geeky for class programming pretty much since we started this thing called CrossFit back in 2003, 2004, where, to be totally honest, at the start of, or at those times, we'd pretty much just share different workouts with each other by SMS around the world for guys that were doing CrossFit. I remember my friend Rookie that owns CrossFit Gold Coast in Australia, we'd just send each other workouts, and through Facebook and through SMS, or it wasn't, when did Facebook start? Like 2005. We would just have different workouts, and there was quite a bit of information, definitely on the CrossFit Journal. There was different thought processes. Some of the original guys, like, I guess you could say John Wellborn in CrossFit Football, and then we sort of looked at different things of Westside Barbell, Louis Simmons, who's not alive now, old strength coaches, Charles Poliquin, who's also not alive now. Gee, this is not really boding too well, this. And we were just sharing different ideas back and forward on programming, on how to build stronger, fitter, and hopefully better human beings. And that's really where I guess I wouldn't say it's an addiction, maybe it is an addiction, or interest for programming started. And it's quite a unique opportunity that you're given, especially in, well, not in just a CrossFit gym, but in any gym environment where you're going to get a hold of a client who's going to entrust you with 1 hour of their day, which I think, given there are only 24 hours in the day, the fact that they're giving you 1 hour to hopefully make them a little bit better mentally. So we're trying to work on mental fitness. We're trying to work on their physical fitness, strength. Some people have more specific goals. They want to pick up muscle. Some people want to drop weight. There's all sorts of different things I'm going to talk about. Some people want to work on different skills. No matter what it is, it's quite a privilege that we're given this 1 hour in the day to help people to do that. But with that privilege also comes a pretty big responsibility that if you do not take your programming as a fitness instructor or a gym owner or the person who's in charge of the programming, if you do not take that seriously, then you're kind of not giving that human being what they're paying for, and maybe what they expect, and also what they deserve if they have paid you for it. And therefore, it is something that should be taken very seriously by the person that is putting it together. It sometimes is, it sometimes isn't. It sometimes blends into quite a big sort of global picture. A lot of gyms will know what they want to achieve on an annual level. Sometimes, and we'd call that more of a macro cycle. So what are we looking at across the year? Where are we trying to take our gym members? What kind of fitness are we trying to deliver within this year? Other gym owners will look at it on a more of a micro level. Maybe that micro level could be weekly, it could be daily, it could be monthly. There's all different ways. And we've talked about this before when we look at periodization as well on this podcast, and also on the InnerFight Endurance podcast. So there's all different time frames that we could look at mesocycles. There's all sorts of different ways that we could look at it. However, I think some of the more, I would say, successful and the way that you define success in your class program could be either scientifically, what changes we're making to people, or they could be a lot more subjective, of which some I'm also going to go into as well. But I do believe that if we do have a sort of global picture, maybe across the year, of how we're going to split the year up and create some focal blocks for a class program, then we're going to see those scientific results, the physical and mental results of people increase maybe at a faster rate. And we're also going to see those more subjective things like people having fun and creating community, which could be goals for a gym. A gym could set out to create community through its program. It might not only be focused, or it shouldn't only be focused on making people fitter and stronger. And that's why our vision is obviously quite broad as well, that we just want to make people better at life, because that helps people in all different areas. Yes, we want to build strong human beings, but we want to build human beings that are having a whole load of fun as well. And obviously that's one of our brand values. So it sort of all ties in. So what we should be coming to is that we have a class program that has some form of vision and some form of direction. It's sometimes the case, but it's not always the case. Fortunately or unfortunately, with the people's interpretation of what CrossFit actually is, which is constantly varied, high intensity, functional movement, they might take that constantly varied to another level and just go something different every single day. And I've been a little bit geeky of late. I've examined various CrossFit affiliates and also spent some time on CrossFit.com trying to, trying to figure out what sort of patterns these guys are following, what sort of strategy, what sort of structure, and what sort of direction they're following. And unfortunately, I found that a lot of them are maybe, I could say, abusing the constantly varied the constantly varied part of what CrossFit is, as far as constantly varied high intensity functional movement, in that their program is completely varied. It has no real obvious structure, no real call outs. There's no sequence to anything that I could really figure out. And it starts to make me ask myself, well, how is that the best way, or is that the best way to make members or the people that are following that program happier, healthier, fitter, stronger? And you could say, well, maybe that's not the primary focus. Maybe the primary focus of workouts on a website like CrossFit.com is just to provide a workout for people to do every day that ties in with what CrossFit would call general physical preparedness. So it just prepares them in a very general way, which is great as well. So there's no massive right or wrong. However, I think that constantly varied is sometimes used in an interesting way. And I wrote an article called Constantly Varied, which was released last week, which is very long. I understand that. But what I did within that article is I wrote about a 8-day window of programming that I followed. I watched. I didn't follow it because I didn't want to smash my body. No, I don't follow a specific CrossFit program. I love CrossFit. I love doing CrossFit. I love doing CrossFit with my wife. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I really enjoy about CrossFit. But right now, I'm not training a full CrossFit program. I haven't since 2017, all the way back to 2005. I followed a very sort of strict CrossFit program for 5, well, you could call it 7 days a week. It included 2 rest days, and had a lot of fun in CrossFit, competing in CrossFit, with myself, with friends, with people around the world. But at the moment, I don't follow a specific CrossFit program. However, I was watching, that's a long way of saying how I actually got to that article. I was watching the programming at a certain gym for 8 days whilst attending that gym as well, which some of you might have connected all the dots. It's really irrelevant, and it's nothing against the gym or the program or It's actually not. I wrote it more to create awareness, and that's the purpose of the show. That's actually the purpose of the podcast, to create awareness around certain things and to try and help inform people and educate people in the best way that we can as to what is actually going on. However, for 8 days, there was very little variation. If you haven't read that article, I encourage you to do so over at the InnerFightWay.com. It's called Constantly Varied. Maybe we'll link to it in the show notes. Hopefully we'll link to it in the show notes. And it talks about the same movement, which is pulling the bar either from the hang position, which is on the knee, or from the floor 350 times, give or take, within an 8-day period. To me, that's one movement that's drilled over and over, and it's not a lot of constantly varied. And you kind of think to yourself, well, is that really the best program for a general gym program? And some people might say, yes, it is, because all of my members at my gym, they love to pull from the floor. However, if you look at it a little bit scientifically, there is going to be a bit of fallout. So there's quite a lot of conflict going on, and I don't think there's any real right. There are some wrongs. There's no absolute right, and we're always going to be able to debate back and forward what's going on. So let's look into a little bit of what should, if you're looking from the outside, if you're someone who follows CrossFit, enjoys CrossFit and all that it brings, what should be in your program? How should your program be put together? And what are you looking at when you look at a program, whether it's across a week? And we've just started over on the InnerFight Way, giving our week overview of exactly what's happening in the attempt. We used to do this, I think we stopped this about 5 years ago. We actually used to put out the daily workout so that people could really understand and prepare for what was going to happen during the week and schedule their rest days accordingly. We stopped, I guess, kind of through COVID, and a lot of the time people complain too much. It's funny when you give them a little bit of information to try and get them a little bit more in tune with what's going on. All they heard is, I don't want to come tomorrow because it's handstand push-ups. And it's like, okay, but yeah, that's a part of the program. Anyway, we're back doing that so that we can sort of share also what's going on. So there's two sides to this of what a program should have. Some of it is more what I would call the scientific side, where we're looking at principles of training, and we're looking at simple principles of training. When I was doing GCSE PE, I think there was 4 principles of training. Then when I was in A-levels in university, they sort of started adding them. We're somewhere around 5 to 7 different principles of training that we should see at least 3 or 4 of them quite prevalent within a program. And these are simple things like progression. So is the program progressive? Does it take a certain movement or a certain skill, and does it address progression over time? So if you take, for example, something that we worked on about 6 months ago here at the gym is progressing people's wall balls. So we realized that when we put wall balls in a class and we're trying to create some high intensity through a wall ball, we saw that we were unable to get class attendees to create intensity with a wall ball due to a bad movement pattern in the squat when we loaded up the wall ball. Therefore, we regressed the wall ball. We put it in smaller doses through the warm-up in a number of different ways. And then we built that up over weeks. And then when we reintroduced that same number of wall balls that we'd had in the workout where we'd identified a problem, we reintroduced it into a class. 2 months later, we saw that the class attendees were able to get the right stimulus from that movement at high reps and at high speeds, at high intensity, being put into the workout. We'll do that with a number of different things. We could see toes to bar breaking down. We can see with, for example, the squat strength cycle should be progressive. It should keep going forward. So that's a big principle of training, that we're always trying to develop those things. Another principle of training that we are using a lot and is in pretty much every program. Toby spoke about it actually on this podcast a few weeks ago when we talk about strength, is overload. So how are we actually creating overload within the program. And that's not just overload in one movement. It could be overload in one movement, but what's our interpretation and our application of overload within the program? Another principle of training that we always keep pretty close is specificity. So how specific are we being? How specific do we need to be? I've spoken already about CrossFit being a GPP program, General Physical Preparedness program. What element of specificity do we have in a program, and at what time and in what dosage do we have specificity in a program? So do we get very specific with wall balls for a certain time period, and then we master that as a skill or as a movement and we shelve it, and then we bring another element in? It could be a rope climb, it could be to work on pull-ups, handstand push-ups, muscle ups, Olympic lifting. All of these different things are more specific parts of a broad CrossFit program, but how are we using? And also, if you're not part of our program, then how is your gym using? How are they getting? What does specificity actually mean to them? Another element of training, principle of training that we should always be considering is recovery. So what do we encourage? What's the right application for people wanting to sort of dedicate their 1 hour a day to a gym? Should they be going 5 days a week? Should they be going 7 days a week? And how are they educated around that? Some people don't want to miss certain days. Some people like to have a rest day on a Wednesday. The application of CrossFit, which I actually have liked for a number of years and continue to really enjoy, is a 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, which is what you'll see on CrossFit.com. Here we program the mainline class for 5 days, and then the 2 weekend classes are 2 different days. So it's a partner workout on a Saturday and more of a cardio, low skilled workout on a Sunday. Low skill, higher heart rate, more sweat, hence the name Sunday Sweat. So we're offering for 7 days, but how are the attendees, how are our clients, or how are you guys as people who attend gyms, how are you taking care of your recovery as well? Another principle of training is what we call adaptation. So if we're doing things consistently over time, how are we seeing the adaptation of the things that we are doing over time? How is the body adapting to it? Are we getting fitter because of consistency? Are we adapting to those heavier weights? What role does adaptation play within the program? So they're sort of the main principles of training. I mean, to be honest, the real nuts and bolts of it is specificity, progression, and overload, because we're reliant. We're not just closing the gym 3 days. We're not taking 1 day off on the Thursday, because some people's schedules are a little bit different. But how are people taking care of their recovery? Before this kind of all starts, just a drink. Excuse me. Before this all starts, though, one thing that we kind of want to really understand is people's movement and how people move. And it's quite interesting. We're almost blinded by the lights a lot in CrossFit, that we want to be able to jump up on the bars, do pull-ups, sometimes do muscle-ups, do Olympic lifting with barbells, do a lot of the fun stuff, where we are unable to do that effectively, and it's not the right order to do it in if we're unable to do the movement properly. So if we talk about progression with a wall ball, actually our real regression would be to go back to an air squat and to see if we can master a body weight movement such as an air squat or a push-up, and how we can control our core, so how we can control that within a hollow position. Movement really is number one, and if you are unable to move your body well with zero load or with just a PVC pipe, then and create tension in those various positions, then the chances of you being able to continue to create tension and have progression within those positions with additional load is probably quite slim, and also pretty dangerous as well. So when a coach asks you to regress and to focus on movement within a program, it's not because they're just trying to make you not as good or send you backwards. It's because they're actually addressing your safety. So movement is not really classed as a principle of training, but I think it's one of the most important things within training, that you're able to move correctly, efficiently, and you're able to take control of your body in order to then progress, get specific, and start to overload it as well. So those are the things more from what I would call a scientific standpoint that should be major call outs within your training and within the class program that you're following. So there should be questioning around that as to what is the progression? Where are we creating overload? And these are actually the kind of questions that I would love to hear people ask us here at the gym. And I would love to think that if you are training at another gym, that you're asking your coaches, like, where is this program going? What is it based on? I'll tell you, for us here, the programming block, we're actually programming on a 6-week block where there's 5 weeks and then a themed week, which in an ideal world would actually be a recovery week. But sometimes it's a little bit against that, in that some of our themed weeks are a little bit more intense than the other weeks, which are things like Hell Week, Games Week, and just trying to break up the pattern so that we create a little bit more, I guess, fun and variation within the program as well. So it's important to understand, or to try and understand, where your class program is going and what blocks it's on. And if you ask your coach that and they don't really know, then I don't know, I guess I would say that would be a problem. As I wrote about in the article that I wrote called Constantly Varied, there are some people that are programming class workouts that on Friday last week were not a CrossFit coach. They've just become a CrossFit coach and they have very limited knowledge. There's some people that went through that similar transition but have a lot of knowledge. So it's very important that you have confidence in your coach or whoever's writing the program at your gym, that at least they have an approach and a theory, and hopefully they're taking into consideration some of the principles of training. If they're not taken into consideration, or they don't have, I'm not telling you to call them out, but just ask them, what principles of training are you looking at here? It could be quite an interesting conversation. When we move away from the scientific side, we move a little bit more to, I guess, what I would frame a little bit subjective objectives, or a little bit of the softer parts of a class program that sometimes are a little bit harder to measure. One of the biggest softer parts of a CrossFit program, and one of the biggest drivers for us and also for CrossFit, is actually community. So it's our objective that we bring people together as a community. We believe that training together, that having these friendships, having this connection is actually going to help people as much as the push-ups and the air squats, to be totally honest. So one of our biggest focal points is how can we bring community into our program? And I'm going to talk about it in a second of how we put together some of the workouts, but we'll always try and include at least once, if not twice a week, a partner workout or a team workout so that we sort of bring community together. We'll purposely have people working together, helping each other, sharing equipment, because one of our objectives is to actually continue to develop community. Another one is to ensure people have fun. So whilst it's not always everyone's definition of fun, some of the workouts we put together, some of them we really are trying to let people have fun, because we find when people have fun, they might be a little bit more relaxed, and then they might push a little bit more in the workout, and their results also could improve, should improve, or do improve. Probably all of the above, to be honest. When things are fun, and again, that's one of our brand values, we see the results go up. Another sort of soft outcome or measure that we have in place that sometimes we achieve, but I'll be honest, not always. Sometimes we overcomplicate things. We want things to be, another one of our brand values, quite simple. Simplicity is our brand value. We don't want workouts to be overly complicated all the time. We understand that people have very complicated lives, especially the demographic that we're programming towards, which is kind of, if you're writing a program or if you're a gym owner and listening, I thank you. However, one thing that you want to be doing is really understanding your demographic and tailoring a program that's quite specific to your audience at that particular point in time. And to be honest, this changes a lot. Our customer base here at InnerFight has changed over the years, and we're always trying to figure out what's important to the customers that are coming through the door, the clients that are coming through the door, and how we deliver that to them. But what we're finding increasingly, not only in this gym, but what I'm seeing across the board, is that people have extremely busy and complicated lives. When they go to the gym, they don't always want a really complicated workout that has 23 different movements with a load of different rep schemes that are done in a weird order, one round, and then in the opposite order. And then you have to take the square root and use pi squared, and like, it's just way too complicated. And this is actually something I learned on my CrossFit level 1, where the flow master Pat Sherwood said, when it comes to programming, live your life in couplets and triplets and occasionally go long. That was kind of his take, which at the time I thought, well, that's quite straightforward. But the more this whole thing goes on and the more that we spend time, it actually fits in exactly right. That sometimes if there's just 2 or 3 movements within a conditioning piece, then that's when you get the best bang for your buck. So keeping things simple is one of the goals, one of the metrics as well. And a lot of the time when we're looking at a program, especially not only strength pieces, we try and put quite a bit in the strength. I'm going to go into that in a minute. We try and put quite a bit in there, but we also try and keep it quite simple, especially when you've got a group of 16 to 20 people that are all trying to do stuff together. Simplicity is something that is incredibly important. So we've got there scientific and perhaps a little bit non-scientific or harder to measure factors that I think should really be a big part of a class program. They should, and in some gyms, what comes first could be argued. Like, your main priority could be to have fun, and your second priority could be the more scientific things like creating a progressive program. Some people don't really want to create a progressive program because their audience don't, or they think that their audience at that particular point in time don't need a progressive program. So that's kind of, it's okay. It's not okay, but it is kind of okay for a certain time period. But there's 2 sides of it. There's the scientific, and then there's the not scientific. So if we look a little bit specific for the remainder of the show, maybe, hopefully, about how we take care of things here at InnerFight, we're probably known for having packing quite a lot into the hour. I know when new coaches join us, they're always like, oh my God, there's so much to get through. Sometimes you'll see that our classes, although we try not to, but sometimes the coaches, especially when they start with us, their classes might run 1 or 2 minutes over. That's because we're trying to get so much into it. So how do we break it up? This is not the Holy Grail, but this is the Holy Grail to us. And this is how pretty much we've done things for the last sort of 15 years. So we'll look at the warm-up, which is anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what's coming next. And what we're trying to do in the warm-up does depend a little bit on what's coming next. But if we can prepare you for the movement and also start maybe some kind of strength element within the warm-up. So an example of this would be if I'm preparing for a back squat, I would start with the first round of a warm-up could be, or the whole warm-up could be air squats. So I'm just loading the squat. I'm looking at the movement patterns, as I said earlier, without a load, just with a body weight. Maybe as I progress through the rounds, that could go from an air squat to some load on it, so that when we get to the barbell for the back squat, we're ready to do that. We're trying to elevate, we're trying to pump some blood Warm-up's a warm-up. We're trying to pump some blood around the body. We're trying to, especially if it's early morning, we're trying to let people feel like they're awake. But at the same time, where we can, we're getting specific to what's coming next. And we may also be developing some mechanical skill within that warm-up. That's why you see things within a warm-up like air squats, lunges, push-ups, top of push-up hold, bottom of push-up hold, wall ball, burpee. These things actually repeat themselves quite a lot because they're such an integral part to our movement. And if we can't, as I was saying a little bit earlier, if we can't master movement with our body weight, we can't create tension within the muscles with our body weight or with something quite light, like maybe a light kettlebell, a light dumbbell, a PVC pipe, then the chances of us being able, sometimes it works against us in less than 5% of scenarios, but a lot of the time we will not be able to do that when we add load. We'll just be compromising our safety. So that's the first, anywhere between 4 to 10 minutes. Sometimes we can go straight into a strength piece and use the first couple of rounds of the strength piece to warm up the strength piece with lighter weights, and then we'd go into the heavier weight. So that's a technique that we'll use sometimes. We then take the next anywhere between 12 to 20 minutes of our class to focus on a strength piece. This strength piece could have one part to it, it could have two parts to it, or it could have three parts to it. It's based around essentially, let me get this right, 5 different components for the 5 days of the week. The mainline class program runs 5 days a week. We consider posterior chain, things like deadlifts, for example. We consider upper, so pushing and pulling. We consider Olympic lifting, whether it's snatch, clean and jerk, snatch one week, clean and jerk the next week generally. What have I got left? We consider lower, some form of squatting, either bilateral, using both legs in the same motion, or unilateral, focusing on one leg, concentrating on sort of an imbalance there because we don't always move with two legs, despite us thinking that we do. And the final thing, the fifth thing, is our gymnastics work. So pulling on the bar, handstand push-ups, and toes to bar. So those things will always be part of the strength, and they will run for 5 days. It's not that if we squat on a Monday, we will squat on the same Monday for every single Monday. We try to move it around. The idea, the matrix that I built a long time ago that I still use now, is that it slides day by day, but in reality, it doesn't always work like that. So within the week, you'll see those 5 elements come through, and within a 5-week block, they will sometimes repeat themselves on one day, but they should move around the days. This is mainly for the fact that we understand people come on different days. You might just come to the gym on a Tuesday and a Thursday. You might come Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And if I program the same thing on the same day every week, then the program would not really have much variety, and therefore it would not tick our box of being fun and fulfilling you. So we move that around. That might take up to about 20 minutes, the strength block. We'll try and program a strength block pretty much every day, with the exception of when Strongman comes around, which is once every 3 to 5 weeks, or if we find a nice long Friday therapy workout. It has always been my take, and this is something a little bit personal, that the start of the week, so now Monday, and the last day of the week, Friday, should be incredibly hard workouts. They should take a lot of energy. There's 2 reasons for this. One is that I think that sets you up really nice for the week. Secondly, it's when I started training a big bunch of people in 2004, 2005, we used to do a workout called Circuit of Death every Monday morning. It was Sunday then, but the first day of the week. And it was a leveler. If you had eaten or you'd been at brunch on the weekend, you knew that Monday morning, Sunday morning then was going to be super hard. So maybe it would hold you back. There's a number of different psychological reasons in it. And the same sort of thing on Friday. I want people to leave the gym, the last workout of the week, closing out the week, feeling like they've done something both physically and mentally challenging. So Monday and Friday, if you don't like hard workouts, this probably isn't the place for you, but if you don't like hard workouts, then those days will be pretty challenging for you. They're not supposed to be incompletable until we put a workout in that we know that the time cap is too aggressive, which we do that sometimes. This show could go on for hours, by the way. However, they are hard workouts. We've done the warm-up. We've done the strength piece. Strength piece could have different components to it. One of the biggest parts of strength is the way we continue to play with time frames. And this is something that's quite interesting. Sometimes if we put 2.5 minutes to do, for example, 5 back squats, you should need that. Those 5 back squats will take about 30 seconds to do. The weight should be such, it's a giveaway really. If you've got a lot of time, then the weight should be quite heavy. This is about progression as well, and I'll talk about strength blocks in a second. However, the weight should be such that you should need those 2 minutes to continue to recover. So it's not that it's an easy workout because it's on a 2.5 minute clock. It's actually that it's a super heavy workout. If you're unable to get that stimulus because you're unable to load the movement that's prescribed that day in a safe way, then the coach should and will, if asked, but they can only change stuff if you tell them that you're struggling. We need feedback. It comes both ways. Then they will change it so that you get perhaps a different stimulus. So sometimes we will program what we'd call supersets. So one exercise with another exercise. Sometimes we'll program part A of the strength and then into part B and then into part C based on what goes well together. I won't get too anal about that. When it comes to strength, most of the time, as we spoke about in the podcast a few weeks, there's a lot of strength protocols that you could follow over a period of time, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, some of them 16 weeks. We have played around with a number of different strength protocols, rep protocols within our class program and seen very poor results. This is mainly due to consistency of people outside of their control. What I mean by that is that a lot of people do not come 5 days a week for 12 weeks straight for a number of different reasons. So it's very hard to follow a program that's based on 5 days of strength for 12 weeks that is progressive, that's based on an initial testing, that's based on percentages, that's based on rep increases, and a lot of different theory that we spoke about in the strength podcast. It's very difficult to implement that into a class program that's for a broader audience who travels a lot or who isn't here over those 12 weeks. So what we will do though, is we will be quite specific about things like I was saying there. If it's 5 reps and it's a 2 minute 30, then that's a heavy leg day. Then if we have a heavy leg day on a Sunday, then later in the week or when there's a leg movement that comes around, it won't also be super heavy. It might be programmed in a lighter way. So there's a little bit of consideration for that. So we don't use what a lot of programs use, which is a strength matrix that rolls throughout. We actually don't really use that because of the audience that we have at the moment. We have used it in times gone by, but it doesn't fit in with the people that we see coming through the door at the moment. And that doesn't mean that those people will not get stronger. They will, and we're seeing them getting stronger because we also do certain tests, and the tests are not always placed within testing week, although we do have a testing week coming up soon. Beware for that, or be ready for that, which is quite good. But we're able to see certain tests within the class program as it's written. We're able to see if people are progressing through awareness around actually what people are lifting, because we're using a similar rep scheme throughout, and we know when we want to, let's call it, push the clients to go a little bit heavier, and we know what results they are getting. Once we finish the warm-up and the strength, we then go into what's known as metabolic conditioning. We're conditioning the metabolic pathway, the metabolic system. We're essentially raising your heart rate. We're making you tired in a number of different ways. We keep this quite varied, and we like the variance here. So why? Because we stimulate kind of a different energy system each day. We also mentally break things up. So there's different formats of workouts, and those that have come, or those of you that attend a CrossFit gym, would know this as well. We might see some intervals where it could be 1 minute on, 1 minute off. It could be 3 minutes on, 2 minutes off. We'll use various different intervals. We could use rounds for time. We could use an AMRAP, so as many rounds and reps as possible within a certain time period. And we will, again, cycle these through the week. So we would never see in 1 week 3 10-minute AMRAPs. We would never see day after day 1 minute on, 1 minute off. So we try and keep that type of condition, or the conditioning side of the workouts, quite varied as well. This keeps things fun, and it trains us in a different way. We still set out to achieve certain things and hit certain body parts using certain movements, and continue to progress certain movements and overload and not overload other movements as well within the conditioning piece. But we're trying not to see the same style of workout and also the same time domain every day. This is why some days the conditioning piece could take 20 minutes and there may not be a finisher that day, and some days there may be a finisher. We're trying within the finisher to attack various body parts almost as accessory work when a finisher comes around, which again, those of you that are in our class program would experience a finisher probably 3 days out of 5. 1 to 2 of them will be core, 1 to 2 of them would be upper accessory, and 1 to 2 would be lower accessory. It could just be 1 core, 1 lower accessory, 1 upper accessory. However, if we've got time, or we feel the need, if we're in a focal stage on a certain movement or a certain skill, then we could use the finisher as well. All of our classes are actually programmed to finish 3 to 4 minutes before the end. And that is purposely done so that we can tick the other box that we have. Yes, we want to make people stronger. Yes, we want workouts to be specific. We want progression. We want overload. But we also want community. We want people to be able to meet each other, to be able to have conversations. And if we're starting bang on, which we always start on time, I think it is super, super important that all classes start on time, and they always do. And we're finishing bang on, then there's no time for friendships and for community. I think I've covered everything that I said I was going to cover. One of the most important thing as a gym goer is that you ask questions, you challenge the coaching staff, challenge myself, challenge our coaches that deliver the program. We would love you to understand a little bit more about why we're doing what we're doing. We would love to explain to you how it fits into a bigger picture. And we would love to help you also perhaps create training goals within your training cycle. So if you are in Dubai for 6 weeks before your next trip, or before a specific date that you want to prepare for, then we would love to have a conversation around how that might look. And we might mix in some of our mainline classes with perhaps some of our specialty classes, which I'm not really going to go into too much detail within the show. We do have, and to be honest, those classes do exactly what they said. Gymnastics spends more time focusing on the techniques of the gymnastics movements. We build volume within the mainline class, but we focus on techniques in the gymnastics class. Same application for our lifting class. And then pure strength is exactly what it says on the tin. So depending on your goal, which if you communicate to us, we can definitely help you to achieve it, hopefully, or guide you closer to be able to achieve it, and advise you on what actually is the right solution. And that of mainline classes versus specialty classes versus maybe even going to Track Tuesday. It's quite funny at the moment. Everyone's asking me, do you not have a high rocks class? And I'm like, well, let's look at the components of high rocks. And it's like, we've been tailoring towards high rocks for a long time. And that's why Jess came third in the pro women, because she's training in a way, she's running, she runs with us at track. She's doing all the things that are kind of part of our ethos and our program. And that's why she's so good at high rocks. So you don't really need a specific high rocks class. You just need to follow a varied program that ticks off those things. But as a gym goer, no matter, as I said, if you come to our gym or you go to another gym, I think really to understand the direction of your program is something that you deserve to know. You deserve to know where it's going, and it will help 100% to increase your interest and motivation. Another thing that's super important is how you measure progress, which for everyone is going to be super different. And this is why a lot of the time when we see programs asking people to talk about 80% or 70% of their 1 rep max, a lot of people are not that bothered about a 1 rep max because they feel pain in the movement of getting to a 1 rep max. And that's absolutely fine as well. It's not for everyone. So we should figure out exactly what the goals are. Again, our coaches here at InnerFight can help you to do that. And then we can figure out what parts of the program and what days of the week, because we actually program our blocks. The skeleton of our blocks is done anywhere between 6 to 12 weeks in advance. The second part, so the strength part of our workout, is also done, it's kind of like 80%, 6 to 12 weeks in advance, because we know where we're going. And then based on the results that we are seeing and the feedback that we're getting, that's why we're always asking people, how are you feeling? How was the workout? How's your legs? How's your recovery? We care about you, but we care that we're giving you the right program. So that's why we're asking those questions quite a lot. But we can help guide you whether you should be coming on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, taking Thursday off, or which days you should be coming. Hopefully with the workout the workouts for the whole week now being posted on the InnerFight Way, you're able to maybe plan your weeks a lot better and target things. But they're conversations that we can have with coaches. Coaches can sit down with you. There's absolutely no charge to it. They would love to sit down and discuss kind of maybe how you can get the best out of your program. And no matter if you're here with us at InnerFight or whatever gym you're at around the world, I really believe that that's something that the coaches should be doing for you. And if they can't, then how's that program being brought around? And that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of gyms that buy in programs. It's written by someone who doesn't know the client base, isn't there to feel what the people are feeling and to chat to people, and the efficacy of those programs often is quite low. Your gym should be writing your program, in my opinion, or should at least fully understand the theory behind your program so that we can continue to ensure that it's the right program for you. Thank you for listening. That has been class programming and a little bit about what we call the InnerFight Way. If you do have any questions, drop us an email, or if you want to come and chat to a coach and understand a little bit more, even if you are remote, you're not in Dubai and you want to chat to one of our coaches, drop us an email, winning@innerfight.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.